Here's a little bit of a different conversation because I've run across some people who take what I say completely wrong because their basic precepts are really just cornfuzzled. So this is a time of education, and I'm going to speak with some authoritative tone. But think about it, pray about it. It's no more important than anything else anyone else says. I don't want you to be deceived. God is not mocked. As a man sows, that will he reap. In other words, you can't mess with God. What you put in, you get out. So, most people live their life based on their beliefs. And their beliefs are based entirely, 100%, with no fault of adding their own thought based on what other people told them. That is wrong. You can't base your beliefs on something that someone else told you without getting into it for yourself. Your beliefs need to be a composite of your knowledge base and your experience. You can't just listen to someone else and say, well, I was raised in this setting and this is what we were taught, so I'm just going to go with that. That's not faith. That's just being sheeple and stupid sheeple. Okay? Forgive me if this is offensive, but it's offensive. That kind of behavior offends me. That you would waste a perfectly good brain that God gave you. Not do anything with anything. Just follow some other person. Bah. You're like people at a red light in America with no other cars on the road for miles. No traffic whatsoever. But the light's red. So you're going to sit there. There's no pedestrians, there's no animals, there's nothing. You're going to sit there until it turns green. That's how you live your life. Okay. Moving on. What you put into this life, you get out. So you live your life based on beliefs. If your belief is that there is no God, and you mock people for believing in God, and you find all kinds of arguments against any thought process that contends that there is a God. You deny any evidence that God is. Your entire life, guess what you get out of it? You get a life with no God. You get a world with no creator and no purpose. Doesn't that sound fun? You get a pointless, meaningless, non-essential, unimportant life. I can't be happy for you. That's stupid. That's ridiculous. Pull your head out. Think about it for a minute. Just really try to not be offended at what I'm saying and really just think about it for a minute. What you put in, you get out. If you put in a bunch of religious standards, how about let's talk about some of the Catholic and post-Catholic traditions of venerating the saints, making little statues, and the trend that's catching on of venerating the Queen of Heaven. You put that into it, that's what you get out of it. And what does God have to say on the matter? Well, I can tell you that he disagrees with that kind of decision. So It's very clear in the Bible. So, you can't mock God. And if you mock God, you're only mocking yourself. You can mock his followers, but it really just points right back at you. I'm not saying that as an attack. I'm saying that as become aware of that as a fact. Consider it to be a fact. And think about all the mockery and all the disbelief and all the arguments that you have made over the years against God or for idols or for the Pope being God's voice on earth or for the Queen of Heaven being Mother Mary and someone you should listen to, or for science being a decisive belief system. All the arguments you make against reality, think about what they've gotten you in life, other than unanswerable questions, bitterness, angst, meaninglessness. Is that what you want out of life? Now, I said, is that what you want out of life? Because God is not mocked. He did not create us to want something that isn't real. I don't think anybody actually really, deep down inside, if they consider it in their own private headspace, they don't want a meaningless life. They don't want a life dedicated to statues or fallen angels or a man or a woman. They want a life that is full. They want a life that is life, essentially. That's the purpose of being here, is to live and enjoy it. Enjoy what's left of creation in its fallen state. Enjoy what's left of our lives, even though it's in a fallen state. What's in us is life. That's the purpose of life at this point. So, denying reality gets you a false perspective and a false reality. As a man sows, so that shall he reap. So God is not some old fart sitting on a cloud, pointing lightning bolt fingers at 4 fish in the ocean and saying, screw those 4 fish in particular. He's not going around saying, hey, this section of the United States is especially acting sinful, so I'm going to send a tidal wave or a hurricane or a tornado or a flood or a famine or... No. Do you get that? That kind of stuff is made up by people because they don't understand what they read in the Bible, because they read it from a modern perspective. So most arguments are made based on what other people believe the Bible says. And those people are talking about the Bible and what it means based on their own modern perspective and the limited view of their life and maybe the life of 2 or 3 predecessors in the faith. It's a good starting point, but it's not a place that you develop end-all arguments from. End-all arguments are made from long-term views, not garnished from a single life, but from a single history of earth and God's interaction with the people on it. It's incredibly important to really grasp what I'm attempting to convey. It's kind of times like these I wish I had written a script, but I didn't. It's a deal. Now, God is beyond all, above all, without all, within all. He is the subversive layer that holds it all together. He made it all. Nothing exists that is apart from Him. That is why things that reject Him ultimately are destroyed. Because if you reject the source of your existence, you cease to exist. In the meantime, those that reject Him, and I say Him because that's the convenient term for English, but those that reject Him, in the end, will be ultimately destroyed. Now they are what we call spiritually destroyed. They are spiritually dead. Okay, that's why we call them fallen angels, and that's why we say the earth is in a fallen state, and that's why we say sin separates you from God. Okay, you're born in sin. You can't do sin that takes you away from God. You're born in sin. You're already dead when you're born. That is your inheritance from your forefathers. You can't get around it. Now, despite the fact that you were born in sin, God, your entire life, has been pursuing you and has been giving you reasons to accept His love. That's it. So all these arguments about God being some kind of sadistic worship demander, someone who goes around and ostracizes groups of people and demands ultimate worship without any payment and blah, blah, blah. That is a total misunderstanding of what is going on. We are born pulled away from God, separated from the source of our existence. And from that moment that we're born and when we develop a conscience and a consciousness, God is pursuing us, trying to revivicate us, bring us back into a connection with the source of existence. He gives us reason to live, to continue existing beyond this earth plane, beyond this body's temporal passing. It's not so complicated. And so we worship God. And worship isn't singing songs and throwing sacrifices. Worship is saying God's worth it. I mean, look up the meaning of the word. God is worth my life. He gives me 2 lives back. I mean, come on. That's worship. So, here's a note to Christians, believers, people who want to go change the world for Christ. If you're not doing it because you need to share what you have, if you're just witnessing because your pastor told you to, or you think it's part of your salvation, or you think it gives you more worth as a Christian, or it increases your righteousness somehow, then stop doing it. That is not what it's all about. You find out how much God loves you and has loved you since you were born, and how He's been pursuing the epic plans of awesome life that He had for you from before you were formed in the womb. From the foundations of the earth, He had great things planned for you that you will like, that you will enjoy, that will fulfill all the things in you that you try to fulfill with all this worthless trash in this world. And you fall in love with God because He loved you. And there's a two-way compassion going on, a two-way connection between the source of existence and your existence, and it is pure 100% unadulterated life. You cannot live that life without sharing it. Think of it like a flower pollinates. Pollen goes in the air, bees carry it around, butterflies, whatever. The pollen spreads. The flower has life and it spreads. That's what a Christian is. You can't witness simply with words and tracts and Bible verses. You witness with your entire life, no matter what you do. And yes, this applies to soldiers as well. I know that's a hard concept for some people to get in their little noggin. You got a jam in your brain housing group. You can't quite conceptualize the fact that a man can kill in the name of another man and still be worshiping God and still have a witness of the life that is in him. It just comes down to authority levels. So, unjam your brain housing group. Understand that God is not some old dude sitting on a cloud, passing judgments, deciding who gets to be blessed and who doesn't. He already designed the system. The system was broken, and he's been pursuing each individual since the beginning to get back into an unbroken system so that we can have full life. Now, if you want to deny that, if you want to say that that's not real, then go enjoy your pointless, meaningless reality as much as you possibly can. It'll be over soon. For those of you that understand that and believe it and live it, start being it. You can't just believe that you're alive. You actually live. Be blessed, grow. And for those of you wondering what God has ever done for you to try to draw you near, unjam your brain housing group. Think. Stop hiding from yourself. Untraumatize your past. Get out of your little hole. Get out from under your box and your rock. And you'll find a flood of memories suddenly just hit you of everything that God's done for you since as far back as you can remember. And how even random people walking up and talking to you at certain times was God reaching out to you. It's easy to remember if you want to. I'm out.